So, good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting, Bennington Select Board meeting of February 13th. We are on the third floor in the fire facility. And my name is Jeannie Jenkins, and I have the pleasure of chairing this board. And I'd like my fellow Select Board members to introduce themselves, starting with Gary.
Good evening, I'm Gary Corey.
Hi, Tom Haley.
Hi, everybody, it's Jim Carroll.
Hi, I'm Jean Connor.
Hey, good evening, Sarah Perrin.
And I'm Bruce Lee Clark.
Lovely. All right. And also, we have with us tonight our town manager, Stu Hurt. We have Nancy Lively, who takes excellent minutes at each meeting, and Josh Boucher, who is staffing the camera for Cat TV, which we very much appreciate. And we have Jonah Spivak on the tech, yes, who is our communication coordinator. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we'll start as we always do with Jim leading us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jim. Now I'll turn to Jean to read our town vision that guides us in all of our work.
Bennington is a welcoming and engaged, inclusive, resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life. And I have a bit of an addendum to the statement I just read, and that is to recognize our esteemed town manager at the end of the table. Today, a little birdie told us, today is his 50th year of being employed by the town. Not the town manager, but employed by the town. Is that correct?
That is correct.
50 years of service is
Yes, sir.
something to recognize. Yes.
I was only
Speech.
10. You're right, Tom?
He was only 10 when he started, yeah. Okay, yes, so thank you, Stu.
Thank you.
Jean. All right, so then next up is the consent agenda. For the purposes of discussion, could I have a motion to accept?
I would move to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you. Any discussion that has not already been shared with
Do you need a
Stu and
second?
Nancy? Oh, we did, Jim.
Okay.
Jim seconded.
Sorry.
Yeah. Any discussion? They're perfect minutes.
They are.
Perfect warrant. All right, so then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so we're moving on to public comment. Just a reminder, public comment is for items that are not on the agenda, but which are of benefit to all. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and please state your name and your town of residence. And if you have a topic that requires more conversation, then we will take it up. We may take it up at another meeting. And I'm thinking none of us grabbed the list of people speaking, right? Thank you. Thinking, all right. Okay, good. We have a nice list
Precious
tonight.
pen, thank you.
So first up is Kelly Carroll to talk about the Riverwalk.
Hi, Kelly Carroll from Bennington. I just wanted to remind everybody that the monthly Walloomsac Downtown Riverwalk will be this Saturday at 10 a.m. The walk starts at People's Park, and this month we've invited all of the select board candidates and the candidates for the school board. So I know Cat TV does have a forum Friday night, and if those of you have any questions that you want for follow-up for that, come on down and join us on Saturday and ask your question. The walk does start at People's Park. We will go up the Riverwalk and work our way over to the VFW, where it will end with a casual Q&A session. If you're not up for walking, or if the weather isn't cooperative as much as sometimes it can be, just join us at the VFW for it, but please join us. And then also, just on another note, and I apologize for not putting this up, but just a reminder that the monthly CPARB meeting is this Thursday at 6 p.m. right here in the firehouse. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, Jack Rossiter-Munley for Community Cafe.
Hello, I'm Jack Rossiter-Munley from here in Bennington, and I've spoken a couple times before about the Community Cafe, but it's an ongoing event. It happens every Saturday from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. at 121 Depot Street. And there have been a couple of things that happened in the last few weeks that I thought bared sharing because they really get directly to the heart of why the cafe exists. We have been increasingly spreading the word about it. Now that we've done it for a few weeks, we've kind of come to understand what it takes to run the cafe, and we're ready to spread the word more broadly. One of the main organizers who's been here with me before, Lorraine, was putting up flyers and was just chatting with somebody about why the cafe exists, what she was doing, and a man who overheard came over and handed her $80. And it turns out that he had at one point in his life been unhoused. And hearing about what was happening, he wanted to pay forward what had ended up being his own good fortune. And that is part of why the cafe exists, so that people can share with each other. It's not just about providing direct services to people who are most in need. It's about providing a place where people can come together. And as that man's story sort of shows, one of the inspirations for the cafe was reading in the Justice Reading Group, and one of the things that came up in those readings is that 40% of people in the United States will have a year in their life where they make less money than the federal poverty line. That's, for any number of circumstances, the case. And it's from that understanding that poverty could happen to anyone for any number of reasons, and that need can look like a lot of different things, that the cafe exists. And then the next cafe session, the one that happened this past Saturday, was a great illustration of that because we had people from all different parts of the community there. We had the executive director of Turning Points come down, and she was able to hand out some harm reduction kits and also just talk to people and learn about what's happening in the community, not just within the segments of the community that are in the most need, but the entire community. So the Community Cafe continues to be a gathering place. It continues to spread the word about what's happening. More people are showing up at every session. Again, it's from 1:30 to 3 p.m. every Saturday at 121 Depot Street. And because I care about all this stuff, I'm also running for select board. So I'll see you at the Riverwalk if you drop by there.
Great, thank you, Jack. All right, next up is Mary Ellen Munley to talk about Bennington Cares.
Hi there. Hi there. I'm speaking on behalf of Bennington Cares, which is a just about 2-month-old organization here in Bennington, citizen-run, and we've had a couple of good things happening in our startup. If you remember, it's a group of citizens who are exploring what it is that the citizens of the community can do on behalf of the elementary schools and supporting the teachers, the administrators, the children, their families. We kind of had a wake-up call when the newspaper reports told us about the difficulties, particularly at Bennington Elementary School, and it seemed like a wake-up call for us citizens to be paying attention and seeing what we could do. So far we've been doing a lot of learning. There have been teachers and parents from Bennington Elementary School who have come to some of the meetings and helped us to understand from their perspectives some of what's going on and where they could use some help and support. We've attended the school board meeting that has happened since then. We were going to go tomorrow night, but we're all celebrating Valentine's Day, right? So we will be at the March meeting. And so we're becoming aware of the issues and the perspectives from that direction. And we're paying attention now to some sort of related issues as they start to come up. And in particular, the one that we've all, I think, noticed recently is the real need for mental health services for youth in our community. And that's really directly related to what's going on in the elementary schools. And so we're starting to figure out how we can contact and put our support behind getting attention and resources for something of that great need in our own community. We've also been letting the school personnel know that we exist and that we care. We managed to get a current and complete list of all of the teachers and staff and personnel at the school, and we organized ourselves so that this past week, 70 thank you notes went out to each teacher and person on the staff at Bennington Elementary School, because we've heard so much that they feel like they're isolated and that sort of nobody's noticing or caring. So a simple act. And then we've been activating a network of opportunities. It's been fascinating to see, just because it exists and there are some meetings, some of the people who have come forward and who they know and what they can bring to help. So for instance, there's a connection now with the Bennington Aces, right? The really wonderful tennis and other kinds of services program in town. It turns out that the Bennington Elementary School children, for instance, don't go there. And so now what's being put in place is some transportation that'll allow them to get to the tennis center and to Bennington College in the summer. The program is free for all of the school district students, but transportation was turning out to be a major issue. And now there's a link to be able to get that transportation. Also, the bike hub that has opened. There's a person, as part of Bennington Cares, who is a member of the bike club, and now there's a connection being made so that the kids and the families at Bennington Elementary can find out about the free bicycles and refurbished bicycles that are available, and the bike safety programs that are also available to anyone around the community. And so we're also beginning to meet directly with some school leaders. We are starting to meet with the leadership at the school itself, and specifically finding those contacts where we can bring forward and support some of the needs of the schools. One of the things that's been particularly identified is after-school programs. And it turns out that there are no after-school programs at Bennington Elementary School. And that's in great contrast to, let's say, Monument Elementary School, and most schools that I think many of us know. And so talking to the school about what would be some of those needs, we have some members of Bennington Cares who are interested in doing some after-school work. We have 2 men who are interested to go in there and do open gym as soon as they work it out in the right way with the school, and just other kinds of things that might be able to begin to emerge. So the next meeting is on March the 5th, and it's at 11:30 at the UU Meeting House at 108 School Street. Everyone is invited, and I would say to the people who are watching on CAT TV that certainly come, find out what it's about, or just even share some information, and it will all be very valuable. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, Don Washam to talk about Bennington, Vermont.
Good evening. My name is Donald Washam, 304 Gage Street, Bennington. Tonight I want to follow up with some things that she spoke about regarding mental health and substance abuse. One of the things that is concerning to me as a resident of Bennington is that she spoke about the elementary school, and the first time that I heard about some behaviors there was concerning. And it was even more concerning when I found out that we were sending Bennington Police Department to some of the schools to squash out whatever behavior these kids were presenting. And I understand, I mean, I don't particularly care for police going to elementary schools, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So I get it, sometimes your hands are tied, and You're just trying to keep everybody else safe, for lack of a better word. So I do get that. But I think there's some things that they could put in place, trainings, for instance. You know, a lot of people don't understand mental health and substance abuse because it's something called being dual diagnosed. You got to address the mental health issue before you can address the substance abuse issue, for lack of a better word. And then, of course, there's several modalities of treatment to go through. You know, you got residential, you got medical detox, you got outpatient, perinatal addiction prevention. I mean, there's a plethora of them. And what I would like to see here in Bennington is I would like to see more of an emphasis put on mental health, substance abuse, homelessness, because that's another issue that we're not addressing. As a matter of fact, tonight I want to, this is not a dig at anybody, I would plead with you tonight that we get a warming shelter here in town. I mean, I can't believe we don't have one. I mean, the weather has been horrific. Last week, Friday and Saturday, I mean, you could have died out there. You're on the street, you're done. And these are things that we need to be thinking about. We need to be addressing them. And, you know, I read the paper every day, and I don't see a host of anything coming out. And you know, I want change. We deserve change. And I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. And then last up, Debbie. Also speaking on Bennington, Vermont.
Debbie Matt from Bennington. I'm concerned about the senior center, if it's this select board's goal to stick us under the Y anywhere now or in the future. And I am concerned about programs that we talk about having at the senior center, and that being told that we can't have it because we're competing with the Y. And I don't see where we are competing with the Y. We are just trying to have programs for our senior groups. And I want to mention Friday here at the firehouse. I think it's at 6 o'clock. It's a Meet the Candidates forum. And I want to put a shout out to people to get out and vote on the budget. And my recommendation is to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, please.
Nancy White, Bennington. I urge Bennington residents to start voting again. You're looking at a budget with an 8.4% increase because the select board felt no pressure to do their job and to cut the budget. I've looked at the 14-page line-by-line budget. There are places cuts can and must be made, and that's the job of the select board, especially during a recession. Because they chose not to do their job, I hope the citizens get out and defeat the budget. And I want people to clearly understand what's going to happen if the budget passes. This is the lease to purchase agreement for the Ben High. The select board fully intends to force their local taxpayers, without voter approval, to pay millions of dollars to buy and subsidize the Ben High over the next 30 years. John Hale is not buying the Ben High. John is not paying to buy 70%. This is the agreement that your select board and town officials never explained when they held the first meeting last March. And I came before you in April, and I asked you to put it on an agenda and go by it line by line to explain it to the public. And to this day, nobody has explained it to the public. So if you want to have a say in your town, get out and defeat the budget and start to get your voices and your rights back again.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else? Yes, Asher.
Hello, I just want to mention
Introduce yourself.
Asher Edelson, local Bennington resident. I would like to mention that I recently took a poll, not a poll, but I polled some folks in Bennington asking about sidewalk repair and expansion. There seemed to be a lot of interest in that, so it's my understanding that there is some sort of list regarding the urgency of, repairing some sidewalks versus others. I would like access to that list if that is something that is appropriate. That being said, I'm running for select board as well as Jack and Donald and Nancy as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Sarah.
Yeah. Stu, do you want to speak to the sidewalk list?
Well, we have a list, yes, and we'd be glad to provide it to Asher when,
To anyone, right? I mean,
Anyone,
it's a
yes.
public list. Yeah.
yes.
Used to be on the website. Is it still on?
The sidewalk.
Sidewalk improvement list.
If it was on, it would have carried over if it was on.
Yep. I was just looking for it right now, but
Okay.
it's somewhere. It's there. It's public.
Yes. All right. We're moving on. All right. So next up, we have our local concerns meeting about the 3 roundabouts, and I'm going to turn it over to Stu to introduce Nicole. Yes.
Thank you. Joining us tonight are Nicole Rogers and Rose O'Brien from VHB. They'll be presenting the 3 projects that involve 3 roundabouts, beginning at the intersections of Route 7 and Coker Drive and moving along Northside Drive. And this is a local concerns meeting, so this is an opportunity to introduce these projects to the community and get some feedback.
Absolutely. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the time tonight. Like Stu said, I'm Nicole Rogers. This is Rose O'Brien. We're both engineers with VHB out of our South Burlington office. We are working with V-Trans in collaboration with the town and the RPC to do some project refinements for 2 specific projects in the town of Bennington. The first being at US Route 7 at Vermont Route 7A, and the second is at 2 intersections of Route 7A at Northside Drive and Route 7A at Orchard Road and Hicks Road. Both of these projects have been identified by the town and the RPC as regionally important projects, and therefore they're currently going through the new Vermont project selection and project prioritization process, otherwise known as VSPS2, which I will get to briefly. So, next slide. Just welcome. Thank you for your time again today. And like I said, we are VHB, the engineering consultant, working on behalf of V-Trans in collaboration with the town and the RPC. Just a quick meeting agenda for just a roadmap for our discussion tonight. First things first, we're going to get into the VSPS2, just give you a little bit of background on that new process, the project refinement kind of timeline that we're looking at, and then get into the nitty-gritty of the study area. So we're going to look at, what has been done to date, what things are missing in the process, and what we need to do to move forward. So we'll really hone in on some of the existing conditions that are out there at the intersections today. That'll give us a nice, clear direction of why these projects are needed. So a big, huge goal for tonight is we want to get the endorsement from the select board to move forward with a project purpose and need statement. This is something that I'll touch on, but it is something that is lacking in the current documentation, and it's something that's required to move forward in the process. And then at the end, we'll kind of go through the next steps and where we're kind of heading in the next 2 to 3 months. So you've kind of heard me say this VSPS2. So this is Vermont, and I'm just going to read this word for word just because it is straight from V-Trans. This is their consistent language. But this is the new Vermont project selection and project prioritization process. So it's a mechanism to identify prioritize and select state transportation capital improvement projects on the federal aid system. So essentially, the whole vision is really to develop a performance-based, data-driven project selection and prioritization framework that really maximizes the transportation value that is delivered to the Vermont taxpayers. So this will be done through, three different, core areas here. First, providing a defined, consistent, and transparent process for selecting and prioritizing the projects that ultimately make up VTran's capital program. Second, providing a clear mechanism for input for communities and RPCs to actually submit these projects. And lastly, utilizing a clear set of criteria that really delineate the transportation value that's going back to the Vermont taxpayers. So what does that really all mean? Essentially, sorry, could you go back one? Thank you. Communities and RPCs kind of meet together. They come up with a list of projects. Those might be asset-driven or regionally, importance-driven. Those are then submitted to VTrans, and now they will go through this new project selection and prioritization process. So essentially, all the projects that are kind of submitted to VTrans, they'll be scored on an apples-to-apples basis so that each project is giving an equitable chance at moving through to the capital program. So essentially, there's going to be a list of criteria. Those are weighted kind of criteria. Each project is scored, similarly, and then they're given a total project score. VTrans can then look at those total project scores and kind of prioritize projects based on the actual need, based on these criteria moving forward.
Just so people know, an RPC, I didn't know this, is a regional planning commission.
Yes.
And ours would be BCRC.
BCRC.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Go ahead. So these are the criteria that each project that is submitted to VTrans is going through. So just to give you a little background, first and foremost, safety. This is probably the most important. So really, VTrans is looking at projects coming in. So do they have the potential to reduce not only the number, but also the severity of crashes occurring at a specific intersection? Next, we have asset condition. So is the project improving a specific asset? It could have something to do with the life cycle. So if something is in really desperate need of repair, it might get a higher score based off of something that might have just gone in. Mobility and connectivity, also a really important one. Asher mentioned sidewalks earlier, so this is really just looking at projects based on, does it have the capacity to enhance the pedestrian and bicycle network? We also have economic access, so does the project provide better access to jobs? Resiliency, they're really looking at, does the project minimize the impacts of flooding in the future? Regional, this has to do with the community, so is it a community-supported project? Is it really conforming to some of the goals that have been identified in the community town plans or regional plans dating back? And then environment, does it reduce the negative impacts of travel? So specifically for intersections, does it reduce vehicle delay, congestion, things like that? And last but not least, health access. So big thing for an intersection project or a multimodal project, does it give the community improved access to physical activity? So say new sidewalks for walking or bike paths for biking. So that kind of brings us to where we are today within the process. So VTrans is currently evaluating the regionally identified projects for consideration within the capital program. So these projects may not have been identified prior to the new process, but in our case, we might not have all the supporting documentation to move forward with the process at this time. So you can kind of see this timeline at the bottom here. This project has already been identified as a regionally important project. It's already been scored, but now we're kind of coming back to this collaborative refinement process to kind of look at those things within the standardized reporting that may be missing in order to move forward. So that being said, we've been working with the town and the RPC to look at some of the studies that have already been done. So we're not here to reinvent the wheel whatsoever. We're just kind of looking to see what gaps do we need to fill, essentially. So it's been a very collaborative process. Luckily, the town has already done a lot of work in the area, so there's a lot to lean on already. So that's kind of where we're at today. So as soon as we do obtain those missing documented pieces that we need, we will be submitting a standardized report to VTrans. It's just called a refinement report. And then the project will be able to go through that prioritization process in advance to design in the future. So now we get to go into the fun stuff. All the process stuff is out of the way. So let's code in on these intersections. So starting from the left, we have Vermont 7A at Hicks Ave and Orchard Road. Then we move towards the middle here, Vermont 7A at Northside Drive. And lastly, US Route 7 at Vermont 7A and Cocher Drive. So I like to always kind of zoom out, and since this was a regionally identified project, there's a good reason for it, right? So we want to look at how do these intersections all kind of collaborate within the bigger transportation network. So, we can kind of see, I know this graphic is a little difficult to read, but there's 3 little orange dots in the middle there. Those represent our study intersections. And they are located within a commercial and industrial corridor with a lot of curb cuts, so there's a lot of, in and out traffic going on, so it's just a busy area. And then not to mention, we have, a couple of schools nearby, we have a regional connector with 279 to the north, so essentially all the traffic funneling towards downtown Bennington is, traveling through one of our big study intersections. And then not to mention, there are several multimodal paths that kind of coincide near our study area. So a big part of this project is coming up with solutions to really improve some of the crossings and connections between all these paths so that it's a more complete multimodal network. And I'm sure you all know, but all these intersections have been a long-standing priority within the town. You can see all these different documents that have studied this intersection in the past, and that goes all the way back to 2002, so more than 20 years ago. So we're finally getting very, very close to this actually happening. So most recently, in 2018, we had the North Street Area Bike and Ped Plan that was developed by the Bennington RPC. Just to give you a background, that study did propose roundabouts at each of these 3 locations. So that is something that we will be moving forward with. Like I said, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to get those little missing pieces that we need to move forward. So now we can kind of get into our existing deficiencies at each of the 3 intersections. I think, just looking at some of these graphics, it's very clear to see why there is a project need. This is US 7 at Vermont 7A and Cocher Drive. Towards the left, you see those really long queues occurring there. So the last traffic analysis that was done definitely showed some inefficiencies at the intersection. So this is just resulting in a lot of delay, vehicle congestion, especially along Route 7A. We also see that, this intersection in particular is really a key connection in the multimodal path network, so that you do have that Cocher Drive shared use path cutting across the northern leg. There is a crossing there, but they do have to cross almost like 7 lanes of traffic right now, so that's just very uncomfortable from a pedestrian standpoint. So any way to really reduce those crossing distances and make that a safer environment is something that our alternative is going to want to do. And last but not least, I did kind of mention the overbuilt nature of this intersection. It's definitely just very uncomfortable from a multimodal perspective, but also it just is kind of an unwelcoming gateway to Bennington. So if you're coming off 279 and you're going to downtown Bennington, you are passing through this intersection. So definitely within that 2018 study, they kind of said this intersection would be a great kind of gateway to Bennington. So maybe putting in landscaping and really creating a sense of arrival as people kind of travel to the downtown area. And then moving on to 7A at Northside Drive. So this is a little bit to the west. Once again, we're seeing a lot of inefficiencies at the intersections. You can kind of see some of the delay towards the left of the graphic here. Once again, this is a really important connection point for the multimodal network. You do have the Bennington Rail Trail cutting right through this intersection. Once again, the crossings are just very, very long, and it's very uncomfortable for a pedestrian to cross that many lanes of traffic. And then once again, you know, the overbuilt nature of the intersection, it definitely just results in a poor balance between all the modes. So very auto-dominant in this corridor. And then last but not least, we have Route 7A at Hicks Ave and Orchard Road. So this is a little bit further to the west. Once again, important connection to the multimodal path. So to the north of the intersection, the Bennington Rail Trail intersects along Orchard Road, and then south of that, you have the pedestrian bridge connecting to Benmont Avenue. So that's a big, this is like a really critical crossing point to really connect a lot of those multimodal paths and really create a nice, full, complete network there. Once again, inefficiencies at the intersection. So we can kind of see this queue along Route 7A on all three of these graphics here. So that's essentially all three of these intersections are signalized right now, and there's just poor progression and timing between each of them. So this results in some backups, and it kind of is residual, especially during those peak periods. So doing anything to really optimize that situation, whether it's through signals or roundabouts where you do have the traffic circulating much more efficiently, that's kind of what we're looking for in the built environment there. And then here as well, we do have some poorly defined curb radii in the top left of this image here, this property. You can see there's no curb there at all, so that just is a safety issue immediately, especially for a pedestrian who's crossing there, and there's no curb to really delineate the vehicles in that area. And most importantly, most notably, all three of these intersections fall within high crash locations or high crash segments. So this, all these projects scored very, very high in the safety category just because they are in these high crash areas. Most notably, US Route 7 at Vermont 7A. This had 56 crashes in 5 years, 14 of which resulted in injury, which is pretty significant. So. Any alternative, we're definitely looking at safety improvements first and foremost. So that kind of brings us to why is this project needed? I think we kind of answered all those questions in those previous couple of slides, but within that 2018 North Street ped and bike plan, they actually already have really laid out the project need statement and project purpose statement. So this is kind of just wrapping that up. First and foremost, the intersections are dangerous, so all of them fall within those high crash areas. The intersections are inefficient. They are all signalized, and there is some poor progression between them. And I believe the North Street area ped bike plan said the intersections are ugly. That was in the document. So I kind of just lightened the tone a little bit to say that the intersections are just unaesthetically appealing. So a lot of massive paved area, lack of landscaping, poor balance of the multimodal network there, just resulting in a really uncomfortable situation for anyone who might be walking or biking. So that kind of brings us to our draft purpose and need statement. So this is something that we're looking to you tonight to kind of endorse so we can put this in our standardized report as something that's been publicly documented. So the purpose of the project is to develop transportation system improvements that foster a welcoming gateway which safely and efficiently serves all mode users while enhancing important multimodal connections. So that being said, love to open it up to anyone. If anyone has any, comment on, could we actually leave that last one up? If anyone has anything they want to workshop on this, like we're happy to, take comment, anything like that.
So Nicole, let's start with select board, and then we'll go to audience. Okay?
Excellent.
Anyone on the board want to speak?
Yeah.
Yeah, go.
Nicole, I'm excited that we might be doing something with these ugly intersections.
Me too.
As I see it, what we're trying to do is get traffic to move quicker through these intersections. And what my concern is just about, I ride my bicycle through there, and right now I press a button, the light signals, stops traffic, and I can go. How will we have light signals for crossing, for pedestrians and bicyclists? And
The alternatives are still being kind of fleshed out a little bit. So, within that 2018 report, they did, suggest roundabouts at each of these intersections. So that would, dramatically decrease the crossing distances that you would have to go. I would assume, full design hasn't been done for any of these yet, but I would assume there would probably be like the rapid flashing beacon. So you would push the button, it would flash, and you would, be able to cross the road. Or if you are, a bicyclist who is comfortable riding with the road, like you can ride in the roundabout. But like I said, like those design, specific things haven't been fleshed out yet.
Okay, thank you.
Tom?
The one thing that jumped to mind for me, and I agree something needs to be done at these intersections, is, but looking at the map, these are major arteries in Bennington. That's the reason we're even talking about this. But some of these construction areas, if we have to stop traffic for any extended period of time, you're effectively cutting off one side of town from the other.
Right. Absolutely.
I doubt you have an answer to that right now, but
I don't
I just wanted to make sure that's in the
Absolutely.
conversation.
I don't have a clear answer for that, but I assure you that a traffic management plan would be developed, in anticipation of the construction of any of these intersections. Like I said, like we are kind of like in this kind of scoping refinement process, so that hasn't been, completely fleshed out yet, but very valid concern.
Jim? No? Jean?
Yeah, I have two. There's another roundabout in our future out near Bennington College.
Okay.
You might not be aware of that one. And that one apparently is proposed to be the shape of a peanut. How about that?
Fun.
So I'm assuming these are just round.
Yes, at this point, round. And I'll kind of like touch on next steps, but, within that previous study, they did recommend a single lane roundabout, but we will be looking at, more up-to-date traffic volumes just to make sure like a single lane versus a multi-lane, we'll kind of figure out that approach moving forward. But I don't anticipate any peanut-style roundabouts.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to the peanut. There's a purpose for it.
Absolutely.
I just
Yep.
had never heard of that before. And then the other thing, when I don't know something and I know nothing about traffic control, and you do, the one at, I'll just say CVS, and then the one at McDonald's, they seem really close together. I'm assuming that they're far enough apart where people won't like get dizzy going around the roundabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might be, realignment down the line where maybe they space them a little bit more. I think if they're both going to be single lane, which I would assume those two would be single lane because they don't have as much traffic as, the main one. So you wouldn't have these huge like radii where you are kind of doing something like that.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. Those are just the things
But
that
the
came to
nice
mind.
thing about, having two that is somewhat close together, it kind of acts as like a traffic calming,
for sure.
alternative as well, and really slows vehicles down in that
Yeah.
area, which is great. So
I feel like we all need, like, I grew up in New Jersey, so I know how to do this, but a lot of people, they don't know what to do.
exactly. You do have the one at the Walmart though, which is
Yeah.
right down the road, which
Yeah, and it's painful sometimes.
Yeah, but it's nice because, you do have some public like awareness already to, but I understand what you're saying. I'm originally from Mass, so I'm a Rotary girl. Yeah.
We know how to do this.
Sarah?
Yeah, I guess Tom kind of touched on my question was, how would this affect businesses when this project is going on? I see it's in front of quite a few larger businesses in town. But the one on 7, I like that. It's the traffic calming, welcoming to Bennington.
Yep.
But yeah, I guess the concern about the others, yeah, I guess.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering about that, but
Yep, we'll take
We'll see.
all of our comments and flush
Yeah.
those through to V-Trans as well and make sure that they're, very well aware. And one of our parts of the refinement process too in our report is kind of coming up with those hurdles that, the town might have to, face once this is under construction. So that's definitely something that will be within the report.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just add to that, I see some of these businesses are not, they're not all franchise businesses. Some of them are, I see, are family businesses that rely on this.
Absolutely.
Income. So just want to, go into that too, so.
Fully
yeah.
noted. Thank you.
Bruce?
Sure. I am assuming there's probably no way to get rid of or to modify or change the kind of what sounds like engineering speak. Sorry. As a lawyer, we have law speak, but things like serves all mode users. I realize that for you guys, you understand exactly what that is. If I shared that with any number of people downtown or anywhere in this town, they would not think of themselves as a mode user.
Right.
They are, they're walkers, they walk or they bike or they ride cars, and those are all modes, I get it, but it sounds awful. And it is not communicative to the ordinary human being. It communicates to you, but not to anybody else. And I would also say that about important multimodal connections. I get it. Yeah, we're talking about the intersection between bike users and pedestrians and cars, primarily, and cars or vehicles. So, other vehicles. So if there's a way to just ditch that stuff.
Absolutely.
Just as a person who likes language, this is language which communicates great amongst engineers and probably traffic engineers. You all know what you mean. But I would want this to communicate to the ordinary human being.
Absolutely. Yep.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And in that way, I do think that it's absolutely critical, particularly on the Benmont Avenue, that particular circle, which I actually like circles, so it doesn't bother me a bit. I do think the engineers are going to have to think really clearly about pedestrian and bicycle crossing of that circle, because that's where that rail trail comes out.
Yep.
It's not even well signed now. Yes, there is a push button to get across, but it seems to me, and I've had any number of people who love that rail trail already, but who want better safety there.
Absolutely.
And so I'm going to suggest that the engineers think 70 times about just pushing buttons and having flashing lights. That's going to confuse a lot of people, and I don't want to be the first pedestrian there to get hit by a car.
We will do everything in our power to make sure that does not happen.
And lastly, just to reinforce the whole notion of efficiency, for me, the whole notion of efficiency has everything to do with reducing our use of greenhouse gases, and this is one of the places. There is nothing good about an idling vehicle.
Absolutely.
And vehicles idle a lot at that 7A Coacher Drive, 7 intersection, and pretty much all up and down Northside Drive in any kind of heavy time. And if this will help that, and I think it will, it seems to have helped it at the one place where we have a circle, or what I'd like to call a roundabout, but hey, what do I know? That would be helpful. So enhancing that notion of environmental stewardship is as one of the purposes of the project.
Absolutely. Yep.
Makes sense to me. Okay? Thanks.
Excellent.
Great. So I want to make sure that we're going to move to audience questions.
Great.
But will you make sure that you talk us through the process from this step forward?
Absolutely.
Before you leave? Okay.
Let's
But let's go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, it's fine. Community questions. Yes, Deb, come on up. Come on up. Yeah, that's
The chart you had that had the number of accidents at each of those intersections, under what time frame were they generated?
That was from V-Trans' latest high crash location report, so that's 2012 to 2016.
great. Thank you. Other questions?
We wore them out.
No? Stu has one. Go ahead.
I couldn't run out there right away. What is a timeline that we're looking at? And you may be going to address that in your future presentation, but we find these projects, for instance, the roundabout at Silk Road was 15, 25 years in the making. That's true. So, I mean, I know these are important projects, so are we really looking at a compressed timeline for these things?
I wish there was a V-Trans rep with us tonight to really answer that question. We're really tasked with the refinement process of this, and we hope to wrap up the refinement process by mid-year this year. And then these projects will be able to push forward through that prioritization, selection process, at which point, funds will be allocated, a timeline and schedule will be allocated. So there's still, this is a key part to get to that part. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question.
So the process is you are going to refine it and then hand it off to V-Trans.
Correct.
And then our question of whether this is happening in our lifetime is still an open question. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not putting bets on it.
I'm hoping, though.
So we can kind of jump to this slide. So just to give you like an update on our timeline for this refinement process here. So, we will take Bruce's suggestions regarding the project need statement and kind of retune that to take out mode users, put in environmental conscious, and take out, what was the, Rose has our notes, but one other thing, multimodal connections. So we'll fine tune that to, make it more accessible for everyone.
Thank you so much. I know you'll do fine.
So really, the purpose of this is really get this documented in the public process. That's, our first step, which we have done tonight. Moving forward, our team is going to look at, further look at that 2018 study. We're going to get some updated traffic volumes and push those through an analysis just to see, the feasibility of the roundabouts, whether it's going to be a single lane or multi-lane, things like that, so we can really fine-tune the alternatives that are being pushed forward. We'll also do just an updated feasibility analysis, looking at, high-level impacts, some conceptual cost estimates, and we will come back here in April, and hopefully we will have someone from V-Trans coming to answer all of your questions regarding, funding and timeline, stuff like that. But we will present some of those basic alternatives with the hope that we get a preferred alternative from the select board as that documented piece that we're missing as of now. So that'll be in April. I feel like we are actually already on the schedule in April, so we'll see you in a few months. And then after that, once we have all those, clear, strict documented pieces, we'll go back, finalize that refinement report to accompany the previously submitted scoring. That'll go to V-Trans, and then this project will be, set to go through that project prioritization process and advance to design in the future.
So the crash data was 2012 to 2016. Will there be more current information?
We can absolutely get more current information.
Okay, one caveat, it's possible it would go down because of COVID.
True, absolutely.
So.
Yep, and there have been a couple of signal improvements at those 3 locations as well, so we might see a reduction, but we'll definitely put that in the report.
Yeah, while, we don't want a lot of crashes, if a lot of crashes gets us this
Exactly.
project, then
Yep.
it's kind of a weird thing to want, but
Yep.
you know what I mean.
We'll spin it, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Shirley.
Is this one project with 3 pieces, or is this 3 separate projects where one can go forward and the other 2 can fall off?
So these are actually 2 different projects. So one is the main intersection, Vermont, 7A at US Route 7, and then the other one are the 2 subsequent intersections. So ideally, you know, if roundabouts are the preferred alternative, the state would take that in consideration, because you don't want 2 roundabouts and then the signal, it's just not going to work well at all. So I would, you know, we're definitely going to push that these 2 go together. It just makes sense construction-wise and phasing-wise as well. So I think that's something, you know, in our initial conversations with the state that they're definitely cognizant of.
And Shirley Adams. Nancy, okay, you got it, okay. Anyone else? Questions? So what you need from us tonight is, do you need a motion from us? Do you need?
Yes.
A motion to accept in concept?
Yes.
Your?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and we will, we'll retune that, refine that, and just need to make sure that it's documented. We have like meeting minutes that we can like put in the report and everything like that, so.
Okay.
Yep.
So I would make a motion that the board agrees in concept with the purpose of the project statement as presented, and looking forward, hi Nancy, this is going to be fun, looking forward to its new iteration.
Can it be purpose and need?
Purpose and need, sure.
Okay.
Second.
Perfect, okay. Any more discussion? No? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please say no. Any abstentions? All right. Thank you
Awesome.
so very much.
Thank you so very much for your time. I appreciate
We look
it.
forward to seeing you in April.
Absolutely.
Great. Wonderful. All right. So then next up, we have Katrina Hastings, who is going to talk to us about Sunrise Families at the Center program.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm here. Sunrise Family Resource Center and the Families at the Center program is thankful for the funding, the ARPA funding that the Select Board gave us. So I'm here to give you an update on how Families at the Center is going, talk a little bit about my role at Sunrise, and a little bit about social capital. You can go to the next one. Okay. My name is Katrina Hastings. I am a program coordinator at Sunrise Family Resource Center. I'm the social capital coordinator. I coordinate the Sunrise Advisory Council, which is a group made up of parents and caregivers in Bennington County that they provide Sunrise with input and feedback about programming, and it's open to any parents and caregivers in the community. So if you're interested, or you know anyone who's interested and you're a parent or caregiver, it's not just for Sunrise families, it's for everyone. And the Families at the Center pilot program, which the Select Board helped fund. Families at the Center brings together local agency navigators along with local families who use support services in Vermont, with a goal of finding new and more effective ways for families to promote their well-being and increase their social capital. In both of the programs that I coordinate, the Sunrise Advisory Council and the Families at the Center, they share that goal. Social capital is at the heart of these programs, and I didn't put the whole PowerPoint into your presentations here, but I put a couple of flyers in there that I think really help highlight social capital. So I hope you get a chance to look at those. All right. So I just wanted to talk about social capital. I know some of you are probably so familiar with it, but maybe for some of you it's a new term. The definition of social capital is broad, but it can be summarized as the social ties formed between people and groups of people that make it possible for resources and information to be shared. Social capital also refers to the social trust and trust within communities and groups. This here, another way to summarize social capital. The social capital is the value of networks that allow people to make contact with one another and ultimately lead to increased productivity and well-being within a group or community. So that's what we're going for with Families at the Center and the Sunrise Advisory Council. Just wanted to really quickly talk about types of social capital. We've got bonding social capital, which happens within a group or a community, family, friends, neighbors. We've got bridging social capital. This happens when different social classes or different socioeconomic groups kind of bridge together. And we've got linking social capital, which refers to creating relationships with leaders or government officials, like the select board. So all kinds of great social capital. Research consistently shows the important benefits related to social capital, such as individuals with higher levels of social capital, being happier, finding better jobs, and we also see people reporting better health and increased levels of trust in a community as a result of these positive relationships. So families at the center, we started in September. I started at Sunrise in late summer, so I just kind of ran into it. I'm really excited. I'm really proud of how well the program is going. We, in the short amount of time, we've met September, October, November, December. We've met 5 times. Actually, tomorrow is the 6th time we meet. I have 12 local agency navigators. I've got 2 CIS workers from Sunrise. I've got early intervention, SVSU engagement, Head Start, Vermont Center for Independent Living, the Homeless Center, Vermont Association of Business Industry, and fingers crossed that someone from the WIC office will be at the Families at the Center network. They're still looking over our MOU. And we actually, at the time that I wrote this, we had 14 participating families. We can go to the next one, yeah, thank you. We're up to 17 in the few weeks since I put together this presentation. So we have a goal of serving 20 families per year during the 3 years of this pilot program. So I'm really proud of the fact that we've hit 17 in 5 months, and we're absolutely gonna hit 20 in less than a year. So what do we do at our program? Families identify concrete goals. I put a couple of examples up here. You know, somebody might come into the program and they need help getting health insurance, or they need help finding childcare, or, you know, housing, all these different issues that crop up. So I'm able to help connect them either within the group or within resources within Sunrise. And we're all working together to achieve these goals. I have a little bit less red tape than some of the other agency navigators might have. I'm kind of like a middleman, so I'm really able to help make things happen a little bit quicker sometimes. The expectations is that families will hopefully participate for a year, you know, and get a full year in. They're compensated $25 per hour. A meal is provided, childcare stipend if needed. You know, so there's some really concrete supports there with the meal and the stipend and the childcare, making it really possible for families to attend. So goals, we're doing this for 3 years. It's a 3-year pilot program, 20 families per year. So we're up to 17 for this first year, and we'll totally hit 20. Each of the agency navigators is asked to bring in 2 families, 1 or 2. Some bring in 1. One navigator brought in 5, so, you know, we've got some rock stars. And so I just wanted to touch upon the Families at the Center theory of change. We're really working to create change on the local and state level for our families that are using support services within Vermont. And we can go to the next slide. So by engaging parents and building social capital that helps them navigate and access services and systems, families will increase their capacity to move forward with their goals. I know, I'm kind of going over my time a little bit here, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. But in state change, by learning about barriers to navigation at the local level, state agencies will be able to identify and change policies and practices that prevent families from realizing their full potential and attaining well-being. So we meet quarterly with some people at the state level, and I bring, you know, if I have any feedback from families or, you know, problems that families are facing that can be addressed on a state level, I bring that to those quarterly meetings. We can go, thanks. So families, to get their stipend at the end of each program, we have them fill out a survey. These are the results from the first 5 months of surveys. We recently updated the surveys. so that we can better measure childhood outcomes and ensure family connections to resources through Sunrise or other agencies. And I'm gonna I know I'm a little short on time, so I'm gonna focus on just a couple of the survey questions that I think really show how well Families at the Center is working and how well it's serving families. So one of the questions is, did you learn about any new resources today that you didn't know about before the event? And we got 95.5% of the time, so that's really awesome. You know, we have families with all kinds of goals. You know, I've got one parent who has a goal of becoming literate, and you know, we had the Bennington Free Library come to an event, and that parent went and got a library card and is regularly taking their children to the library. So, you know, we've got all kinds of goals, from health insurance to literacy, and families are learning about new things that really make it possible for them to do that. So it's really exciting. I'm gonna scroll, kind of go over to the social capital. Did you feel like you, I think it's the last one. Yes, okay, so I start off every meeting, Families at the Center, kind of how I started off this meeting. Hey, I'm Katrina. I know I say this every time, but we're here today to build social capital. And I, like a little robot, I talk about social capital for a few minutes. Everyone in the program, I bet if you polled them, they'd probably be able to tell you pretty well what social capital is. And I was so happy to see this in the first 5 months of the surveys. Everybody feels like they're gaining social capital during every meeting. So families need this. You know, we have so many families in Bennington County that are struggling with so many things. And this gives them hope, these types of programming. That's why Families at the Center, programs like Families at the Center, programs like the Sunrise Parent Advisory Council are really important. So we'll go. This is some stuff that they'd like to see at future meetings. So, you know, we take that into consideration. The agenda for every meeting is based on feedback I receive from the parents. So every single parent in the program right now has one of their goals is to have an easier time dealing with some behavioral management issues they have with their children. So tomorrow at Families at the Center, I have a behavioral specialist coming to present, and then we have another project to work on too. So, you know, throughout this year, we're gonna be working on other things. I'm working on finding someone to come and talk to families about establishing and building credit, because this is something that almost every family was like, this is something I need help with. You know, we had SVSU engagement specialists present at a meeting, and that was really helpful to families because a lot of them are struggling. You know, they're getting some support from school, but not enough support, and they need help, you know, learning how to talk to teachers, learning how to talk to administrators. So, you know, we're connecting them with those resources so that they can better meet the needs of their children and their families. We just added some new questions, and we also are starting a navigator survey this month as well. I didn't include that here, but I'd be happy to share that with anybody who's interested. And social capital, just a quote, social capital is the new gold. Add values to value others, and you will be valued. I really liked that quote because social capital, again, it's just at the heart of everything we're doing. That's why I included those 2 pages about social capital. It's just so important for our families. So I would love to answer any questions that anyone has.
Great, that was wonderful. Thank you, Katrina.
Yeah.
Questions from the board? Any questions? Yes, Bruce.
Not so much a question, although actually it has to do with, I think they're called navigators in your system.
Yeah.
These would be other groups and agencies.
Yeah, so it's sort of like, it might be like a social worker. We're just not quite using that language. So a navigator might be an SVSU engagement specialist or a Head Start specialist.
Have you made contact with the Greater Bennington Community Services yet? They run the free clinic, and they also, the Bennington Free Clinic, which has been...
They are not part of the Families at the Center network, but
I would encourage reaching out to Natalie.
Okay.
And because a number of things that you mentioned are things that that particular center is really good at helping people work on. The other thing is when you're talking about credit and developing credit, the places that I have found that are very open to this are the credit unions. So you may want to, I mean, not to say anything bad about the banks, because it's not.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the credit unions are really good at talking to people about how to develop better credit, and you have relatively low requirements for access to that banking system within credit unions. So I would encourage that.
Absolutely, thank you. And I just also wanted to mention, so Sunrise is so grateful that the select board gave us some ARPA funding last year. The O'Neill Foundation is funding this partially for 3 years. So this is a 3-year pilot program. We do have to get matching funds each year, and we are looking for continued funding. So if the select board has other opportunities to continue to help fund families at the center, we would greatly appreciate that consideration.
I really love the list of future questions, because I think it really shows the breadth.
Yeah, no shortage of future agendas for me.
Of how people are thinking about resources. It's
yeah,
lovely, absolutely.
And
lovely.
it's really, the feedback I've received from parents is it's really awesome, and they love coming. Like if they can't come, they're so sad. They love coming, and actually the credit and the financial stuff that we were talking about, that came out of, we always start with an icebreaker. I do my introduction and we have an icebreaker, and during one meeting, the icebreaker was, what's the best or worst piece of advice you've ever been given? And a parent said, well, I have one that I'm not sure. One of my teachers told me to never get a credit card. So I followed that advice, but now I have no credit and I don't know how to get any. And then everybody was like, oh, I have this problem. And then I was like, oh, so, is this something that we should address in a future Families at the Center meeting? And they were like, yes, please. So, we're really trying to help families. Yes, families have so many different supports. There's Reach Up, there's all these different things, but there's still all these cracks, and there's still all these little things and that they need help with, and that's what we're here for. So we're kind of filling in the gaps and helping them build that social capital, and so that it's not just me and Sunrise helping them, but they're able to help each other. A lot of them are hoping that they'll connect with people outside of these meetings. A couple of moms who come to Families at the Center have become best friends. They call me together, and it's great. So they're making friends, and they're really, really increasing their social capital, and that's going to improve their lives.
Great. Anyone in the audience have questions? Yes, please come on up.
I'm curious what the budget.
Oh, come on up. Oh. And introduce yourself, so Cat TV can make sure to catch you.
I'm Mary Ellen Munley. I live here in Bennington. I'm curious what the annual budget is for the Families at the Centers program, and what proportion of that we're paying for through our town budget.
Sure. That's a really great question. So I know that the Select Board gave Families at the Center $5,000, correct? And the budget is, I'm funded through a couple of different things at Sunrise, and I do Families at the Center and the Sunrise Advisory Council. So I'm not exactly sure the exact numbers, but I'd be more than happy to find out.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it was that 75 was coming from the foundation and 5 was coming from us.
I think so. And we also got some funding from the Vermont Community Foundation. We got $4,000.
Okay.
But I can find out.
And the navigators, are the salaries for the people who are the navigators being paid by those organizations as an in-kind?
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Nancy has a question. Oh, Nancy, sorry. It's hard when people aren't in the audience.
Jess, could you clarify who's getting the $25 an hour? Are these the navigators?
No.
So Nancy, step back.
Okay.
Katrina, step up.
Okay, no, the navigators are participating as part of their jobs. Families who participate that are brought into the program, the families using support services in Vermont are getting paid the stipend. So the participating families that are brought in by, they have to come in with a navigator. So it's like the Sunrise Advisory Council, anybody in Bennington County who's a parent or a caregiver can join. Families at the Center is a little more specific. You have to be brought in by one of the agency navigators that is in the Families at the Center network. So it's not just open to anybody, it's open to, they're bringing in families that are using support services in Vermont.
So in addition
Nancy,
to
so now you get to pop up. Katrina gets to.
So in addition to support they're already getting, they get an extra $25 an hour to participate?
Yes.
That's a lot more than a lot of us working in Bennington are making an hour at our jobs, even those of us who've been at jobs for a decade or more. So I would question that amount of money on top
Katrina.
of the other services.
Okay, so Katrina, you may want to talk about how many hours we're talking about.
Yeah, so Families at the Center, we started out meeting 1 hour per month. Now we meet 2 hours per month. So families that are participating, they're getting a $50 stipend gift card for participating. You know, I will say that one, you kind of have to have incentives if you want families to come. There was a short 3-month pilot that was done last year, and that was one of the main takeaways, was that you have to have childcare and you have to have some concrete supports like incentives, like a meal, like a stipend. But I just want to speak on families receiving support services. Families could be receiving all the support services that are available to them, and they still are below the poverty line, and they don't have, enough money to even meet basic living standards. So, this is, it's like a little bit of a Band-Aid, yes, but it's really important that we have those concrete supports for families because they really need them. I hope that makes sense.
Great. Yes. Any other questions? Oh, yes, please.
So the new families, as they join, they've missed a lot of the wonderful discussion. Is there a way that they can kind of catch up and?
I have a little bit of an onboarding process. There's not so much a way for them, if they wanted to look over all the minutes, I could, but I usually say, hey, this is kind of what we've done in the last few months, and I can tell them about some of the stuff, and I can give them flyers and the information
or go
about
talk
the previous
to so-and-so
meetings. Yeah. And I could even sometimes say, hey, I have a parent who's really great, who's been there the whole time, and you can talk to her, and she can tell you everything. So I try to get them to really talk to each other and build that social capital too. And the thought is that families will be in the program for about a year, give or take. Things happen, and it's we're not holding anybody exactly to that, but some of the things that we're doing, we might do again at some point, and families might get it on one end or the other.
I just have 2 comments. It kind of piggybacks on social capital with what is going on at GBIX with the community cafe. I just thought, they're so closely aligned and accomplishing very much the same things. And how it must be so much easier for these families to, let's just talk about credit, to talk amongst themselves and in a very safe space than to walk into VSECU and have that conversation.
Absolutely.
So it's really, really wonderful that they feel so supported and can basically bring up anything they need, any need they have, a topic they want to talk about in a really safe space.
Yeah, and I'll just highlight that I meet separately. 1 month I meet together with the agency navigators and the families, and the next month I meet separately. I meet with the families, and then I meet on Zoom with the navigators, so they do get a month every other month where they don't have their regular agency navigator there. So there's a little bit more freedom. They might talk to me about some things that they might not want to say in front of their CIS support worker, or, so again, it's sort of taking away a barrier that I can really help them with things that might be hard to talk about, or, things that they're really struggling with. But these can also sometimes be scary things to bring up with your support workers, especially if you've got DCF involvement or, things like that, and you're worried about losing custody of your children and things like that.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you for the update. That was really nice. And if you want to provide information that Mary Ellen was asking about.
The funding information? Yep. I'll check in with my boss, Denise Main. I actually I asked her today about some of those details, and she emailed me some of it, but I didn't put that in my presentation. So I have your email, Jeannie. I can send you that information so that I can get out to whoever it needs to get to.
Also, we didn't get a chance really to talk about the entire presentation because you felt like you were needing to move along. If there's a way to send that to us?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, and then we can include it in the minutes.
Yeah. Jonah was listening, so.
Yes, Jonah has it. And feel free to share my presentation with the notes as well. That helps highlight some stuff that wasn't up there. I'd be happy for you to read my notes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. So then next, we just wanted to spend a couple minutes reviewing the policy that we put together a few years ago to all agencies that are receiving funds via ballot or placed in the budget. And my sense of why we wanted to review this was that in the last couple years, our town manager has spent a fair amount of time reaching out to agencies that had been on the ballot the year before, but might not have turned in any information or all of the information or accurate information to be on the ballot in this year. And I think our worry was that this is not something the town manager should need to do. So I think what we have here is a copy of the cover letter that goes out with the policy to any organization, any social service nonprofit that is planning to be on the ballot or be placed in the budget. So we just wanted to review this, and it looks, Stu, do you want to talk about the changes that you made to
Sure.
the policy?
Yeah, the goal here was really to try to make this interchangeable year to year. Instead of writing a policy that effectively dates change every year within the policy itself, by striking specific dates and referencing timeframes, we can then enumerate the date on an annual basis that those things would be due to the manager's office. I think it is important, Jeannie touched on it, oftentimes my staff and I are chasing down information from organizations that have been on the ballot before or have petitioned and been successful, which then gives them the opportunity to appear on the ballot again, as long as they're not changing the request. And oftentimes we're beyond the deadline when we need the information, and we're requesting additional information from them or following up to make sure that they get the information in. So I think the attempt here is to make this as clear as possible when it goes out to the agencies, and we will ask the board to support us in adhering to the policy in the future, because nothing would be worse for the management team to say you can't be on the ballot, and they appeal to the select board, and the select board says, oh, put them on. Yeah. And that makes us the bad guys, and we really don't want to be the bad guys. These are votes generally that are placed before the voters, and most often, and historically anyway, have been very successful for the agencies. I don't think we've had many defeats over the years. So that's the attempt here, is to eliminate the changing it every year so that agencies, when they get this, they will know the timeframes, and we'll send this out, and they'll have the specific dates at that time, because
All
those
right,
dates do
so,
change.
okay, so that policy change, and then I think also, I propose that we add another sentence to the cover letter that makes it crystal clear.
And I actually have one quick, I'm going to make a suggestion of
Yes.
one quick change.
Okay, on what?
Where, you know, where
the
it starts
policy?
listing, yes, on the policy, where it starts listing the documents requested are.
Yep,
I
yep.
would say, I would change that to the required documents are.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And if there's I know there's a place on the new website where this can be posted, where it's appropriate. I mean, you know, agencies sometimes start thinking about this before we start thinking about setting it out, or maybe it's an agency that's never done it before. It's always helpful to have this kind of information in an appropriate place where they can see, oh, this is what we need to do, and these are the rules. I have absolutely no, I mean, I won't be here when you do this again, but I have absolutely no problem with us saying, if somebody doesn't abide by this, that's the way life is. It's perfectly okay. And I would not override the decision of the administrative staff.
Jean?
Yeah, I have a little wordsmithing as well. On the cover letter, the first page, instead of, and this appears twice, agencies, at the bottom, last sentence, agencies requesting funds are strongly encouraged to present at the floor meeting, and the
Well,
same.
Can we not say required there too? I mean, because we actually want them to come and speak.
I agree.
But if they don't, it's too late, the ballots are already printed.
Oh, okay,
So
yeah, that's true.
You can't,
Okay.
yeah.
Strongly encouraged, it's true.
And then strongly encouraged
just
could
say
be
shall.
also, let's see, via the ballot on page 2, the last sentence, blah, 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 blah. Agencies requesting an increase.
Oh, agencies are invited to
I'm
present.
sorry, yes, agencies are, again, strongly encouraged. And I also had the required documents change that Bruce had identified. I think, and via, I'm rambling, via the ballot section, again, the third line down, instead of the following documents, I would say the documents listed below.
Right.
Because they're really not following, they're kind of far down. So those are just my wordsmith
Okay.
suggestions.
Okay. So I'm feeling like after the first paragraph on the cover letter, where it says no later, that the materials need to come in no later than Monday, whatever date, I'm feeling like I'm worried that people don't get that if submitted materials require revisions, the changes must be submitted prior to the deadline.
Yeah.
For the request to be included on the ballot.
Absolutely.
Because if someone turns in their materials the last day and not all of them are there, or it's the wrong year that they submitted, or, you know.
For whatever reason, I wouldn't mind having a sentence there that basically says, if this is incomplete by then, you know, and
Yeah, so I mean,
the answer is
whatever
no.
sentence, I just think we want to, it feels like beating a dead horse, but I sort of want to beat a dead horse.
I want to, well, unfortunately, it's a live horse, and we need to keep it under control. I don't want to
Yeah,
beat
so
any
Stu, are
horse.
you comfortable with coming up with
Yep.
language that,
Gotcha.
okay.
How long, if I can ask, how long before this is due to you send the letter out? How much advance?
We generally send this letter out when we begin our budgeting process, which is early October.
So that gives them a month?
It gives them 2 months, effectively. October and November to pull together their information.
Does that feel like that's sufficient time?
Seems like it.
Yeah. It's 5 items.
Okay, all right, so, do we want a motion to make the changes to the policy that
I would move that
Been
we make the
indicated.
changes that have been identified and that we approve the policy then as rewritten.
Okay, and that a cover letter will clearly
Yep, including the cover letter changes.
delineate what needs to be done.
There's a bell.
Nancy, did you get that, that somewhat rambly?
I just asked to make sure.
Good. All right, does someone want to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Oh,
Can I ask after you
why,
We haven't voted.
I know, we're already, this is really our policy. You can, let's, we have a
Question.
It's a question. Okay, so go ahead, ask a question. Come on up.
So if groups don't have all their information in by the deadline, they won't be on the ballot?
Correct.
And this is
They
the,
can petition.
Yes, they can petition, but they won't automatically go on the ballot.
Right.
okay. But will they clearly understand if the information isn't done, they're off the ballot for
That's
that
what
year?
we're trying to accomplish.
That's the intention here, so.
Okay.
We're hoping the
But
language
my
is
other
really
question
clear.
is, this is the first year I ever remember that none of the groups on the ballot were at the budget meetings. Did you invite any of them to come?
They've never come before.
They come to town meeting.
What happens is the organizations that are in the budget, that are included in the budget, come and speak to it. But the ones that are on the ballot come to town meeting.
Well, they used to always either come to the budget or they were at the select
No,
board
they did not.
meetings.
No, they did not.
I've never, not in my time.
Nope.
Well, they used to have 2 or 3 at each select board meeting prior to the budget.
Nancy,
I mean,
you're confusing those that are in the budget with those that are on the ballot.
Right.
well, they used to all have a chance to speak. You can't get answers at town meeting. People have already voted absentee by then.
Okay, so are we ready to vote? Yes?
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Super. Okay, great, thank you. Dan, you're up for the
So this should be quick.
TIF district report.
So every year, we have to submit a report to the Vermont Economic Progress Council regarding our TIF district. So far, it's been relatively easy because we haven't taken out any bonds on our TIF district, so the financial reporting's relatively straightforward. There is virtually none, but we do update VEPSI on progress on the projects that we have identified as important projects, both private and public infrastructure projects. So the report has been submitted to you folks. I will then I'm asking you folks tonight to simply acknowledge receipt. You don't have to do anything beyond that. Once you do that, I will be sending that up to the VEPSI folks along with our audit probably tomorrow, because tomorrow's the deadline, or the 15th is the deadline, so I have 2 days. But that's really all that needs to happen this evening. You will note we have had a modest increase in our grand list for the downtown. What's interesting about this is that these reports look back quite a ways, and the report is actually for the fiscal year that ended in June of 2022, but the numbers we use for our grand list are actually from April of 2021. So we're back a couple of years. So although we do show an increase, we'll show even more of an increase next year, even without additional improvements, which we do expect to have additional improvements as well. But that's why that number seems oddly low, because we're looking 2 years back before a lot of the projects that have recently been completed.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
But we also do have, unfortunately, and it's an issue, I understand why we do it as a state, but it is an issue. We have nonprofits purchasing properties, and then they go off the tax rolls. And we do have several of those in our downtown recently that have occurred, and that has impacted our grand list. Well, we do see a net improvement nonetheless, so. But, so, just need you to acknowledge and formally acknowledge.
So do you need a motion for us to acknowledge?
Oh, you know, I think that's safest to say a motion to acknowledge receipt of the FY22 TIF, annual TIF report.
Okay.
Second. No, go ahead. You got it.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, and that brings us to implementing the town vision, which I think the only thing on the, under that this.
I'll just reiterate what Kelly said at the beginning during public comment, that the next CPAR meeting is right here in this room, Thursday at 6 o'clock.
Great.
Everyone come.
Perfect.
Or watch.
All right, and that brings us to the manager's report.
Thank you. I have two action items tonight. The first of the annual street closings request, and this is not the only one to be coming for you as I highlight here, but we know that Mayfest and Harvest Fest are coming forward again in calendar year 2023. Mayfest is scheduled for May 27th. October 14th is Harvest Fest. The street closings are the same. They close Main Street from the Four Corners east to Valentine Street, School Street from Main to Pleasant, Pleasant from North to School, and Silver Street from Main to Union from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. on the dates I've already highlighted. So I'm looking for a motion to close the streets as requested for those dates and times noted.
So move.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
And I do note at the end here, Hemmings cruise-ins are coming. I think there are 4 scheduled. There's also the townwide tag sale, and the food truck fest will also be coming to Bennington this year. So I'll be back with some additional street closings as we move through.
So, Stu, do
the
we
next
also have
meetings.
First Fridays?
Pardon me?
We also have First Fridays?
We're not going to be closing the streets for First Fridays, at least at the present time.
Oh, okay.
Garlic Fest?
Garlic Fest, we're not certain where Garlic Fest is going to be this year. They're talking both, they're looking at additional locations as well as the downtown. So the next thing is something that we've asked you to do from time to time. This is the engineering application funding for the Burgess Road pressure reducing valve project. This was a project that was approved by the board, oh God, probably a year or 2 ago. It kind of took a back burner while we went through the whole process with the ARPA funds, and then we had the lead line replacement project come forward. This project now has received approval from the state for funding, which then means we must approve the loan agreement, adopt the resolution, and we can adopt it without reading it, and we also must approve the certificate that is attached to it for the borrowing. This is for a total amount of $55,380. It's a reimbursable that will be paid back to the town when the engineering portion of this project is done. I have 3 pages for signatures. One is the chair only, and I've marked that as chair, and 2 require select board signatures, and ultimately the treasurer and the town clerk would be required to also sign these documents. You've done this before.
Yeah.
All right, so you need a motion
Sari,
to approve the loan,
Yeah, I was going to ask, is it
adopt
3
the
motions or
resolution.
1?
You can do it all in one.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Okay, so approve loan, adopt resolution, and what's the third?
Approve the certificate.
Certificate.
Okay.
I would move the adoption of all of that.
Any discussion? No? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I will circulate this for signature. Pages are marked. Just in the additional informational area, you'll be, in a sense, surprised to know that we are actually proceeding with the Armory Bowen Road land trade. The EPA requirements for maintenance of the Armory building and monitoring of the Armory building are relatively substantial and severe. So we have been working with the Armory folks, the National Guard, to incorporate the fact that they will be responsible for that monitoring in perpetuity. Unfortunately, EPA has already, through the Armory, have filed a document in the land records which does not really address that effectively. So we are working with the Armory to try to turn that around. In order to move their project forward, they have proposed that they pay us $230,000 for the lands on Bowen Road, which was the assessed value of the Armory, if you will recall. We would then hold those funds in reserve until such time as the deed and relevant paperwork are worked out and return them to them. But this allows them to continue to proceed with the project. The notice, we had to re-notice the sale of the land. That notice appeared in the banner, I believe, either Saturday or, yeah, it would have been Saturday. I just want folks to know that that is proceeding. We're still probably looking at a 2025 year to occupy the Armory when it's ready, when their new readiness center is ready. The contract 3 for the lead service line replacement project, which is at random sites, these are sites throughout the town, has been awarded to Casella Construction at a bid price of $1,251,820.50. That 50 cents is important. But nonetheless, they are planning to start these projects in March, weather permitting. So look forward to more construction. It is throughout the community, so you're not going to be seeing them in one neighborhood banging away. They're going to be scattered sites throughout. And I can't remember the number of lead line services that they hope to complete, but it is relatively substantial. I did already mention the food truck event is coming to us. It is scheduled for August 12th, which is the Battle Day weekend. Should be a good time. People probably enjoy a lot of different foods on that day. We'll be working with the folks who are the sponsors for this event. Their submission to the Bennington Police Department under the special events policy has been completed, and once I have approval from the PD, I'll be putting this before you for certain street closures. The Benmont Avenue County Street project is finished for the year. The street is now passable, much more so than it was. I understand there may be a couple of lead line issues that remain. We may be having problems with some of the families not agreeing to have their lead lines replaced for free. But nonetheless, we'll work through those, and come springtime, the Bennington DPW folks will be moving onto the site to upgrade the sidewalks and finish paving of that project. And last but certainly not least, although the rail cars have moved on, we still have never received a copy of the waybill. We expect that this will be an ongoing problem every time, this time of year. This is, I think, the second or third year in a row the cars have shown up. So we'll be continuing to work with the congressional delegation at the federal level to try to understand how we can control this and what can be stored on those rails. And that's all I have.
It's quite a bit. Yeah.
I know, that was a long one.
Any questions for the town manager?
I just want to clarify, that was a big number for the lead line replacement. Every penny of that will be reimbursed.
That is correct.
Okay.
Including 50 cents. All right, upcoming agenda. So let's see. So we know we have Bennington Police Department is coming.
Bennington Police Department is scheduled to come next time. The Malone Solar Project will be before you next time.
The what project? Oh, solar. No, there was emphasis on the wrong piece. Yay, solar. Well,
And there are a couple of other things that have come forward. The Bennington County Solid Waste Alliance is amending their solid waste implementation plan. It does require adoption by every community that it serves. So that'll be coming forward, and basically the amendment is to allow for a household hazardous waste collection facility at the Bennington Transfer Station.
Great.
So that project is moving forward as well, but we need to amend the SWIP, and that will be next time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, just from experience with the Malone Solar Project at the Planning Commission level, I wouldn't schedule a lot for that evening. It's probably a 2 to 3 hour event. So there will be a lot of folks.
So maybe we limit it to what we have right now then.
Yeah. I just know that there will likely be a significant presentation, and there will likely be significant comment from folks that are interested in that project. Maybe I'm wrong, but just based on 2 planning commission meetings we've had that went for a significant period of time.
Okay.
And unlike the planning commission, we were just making a recommendation. You guys will be making a final decision about what you want to present to, or what you want to communicate to the Public Utilities Commission. So a lot more riding on this than there was at all.
Yeah, I do think it's important that we get the Solid Waste Alliance agreement in place. And also, we already moved the Bennington Police Department from this meeting to the next meeting.
I know.
So nothing else. We're putting them on first, yes. Okay, we will do that. Thank you for the warning. Okay, so anything else that we're thinking has to be on this next agenda? Okay, good. And then other business. Gary?
Nothing.
No? I do. Go. Yeah, go. Yeah. Anybody?
Yeah, happy Galentine's Day today and happy Valentine's Day tomorrow. If everybody knows what that is, so yeah, enjoy.
Okay. I just want to say the Bennington 2022 annual reports are out, and they are also on the website, wherever Jonah went. Yes, on the website. Thank you, Jonah. So it has lots of good information, including information on the audit, information on the proposed budget, and updates from different departments. So that is worth doing. I do want to just note that there is one, the Planning Commission, a new member, Evan Yadeski, got left off, but he is absolutely an active and wonderful member of the Planning Commission, and he's in his first of 4-year term. Okay, so that's all I have.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone in Cat TV land and people that came in person.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.